The boardroom erupted into stunned silence as the projection flickered to life. Headlines screamed across the screen. The janitor behind the billion-dollar game. No one moved. No one spoke. Just 30 gray-haired executives staring wide-eyed at the image of a janitor holding a game controller. His face half-shadowed, his name, Elias Ward, bold beneath. "That's him," one whispered. No answer. Somewhere across the country, Elias stood in a worn-out boiler room, scrubbing grease from a pipe, unaware of the chaos unfolding. 2 years ago he was mopping floors, ridiculed by programmers, ignored by CEOs. Now, the game he built in secret during night shifts had exploded. Investors were scrambling. Legal teams were digging. How did a man with no degree, no formal training, and a mop in his hand outwit Silicon Valley? The screen froze on a still frame. Elias looking dead into the lens, jaw tight, eyes aflame. The narrator's voice cut in. "This is the story of Elias Ward, the janitor who built an empire in the shadows." Elias Ward wasn't supposed to be in that building. Not really. His ID badge gave him access to storage closets, utility shafts, and the loading dock, but never the 14th floor. That's where the developers worked. That's where they laughed at him, called him Mr. Mop, when they thought he couldn't hear. He didn't care. Not really. Because every night, after they left, Elias wandered into their abandoned offices. He didn't steal. He studied. Line after line of code, wall after wall of concept art, he devoured it all. No one noticed the janitor memorizing their algorithms, replicating their engines on borrowed scraps of tech. No one cared that he watched every tutorial they scoffed at. Until now. Until the whole world found out. But in those quiet nights, when all he had was a mop, a dream, and stolen Wi-Fi, Elias was already building something no one else could see. They didn't know he had a past. Before the mop, Elias was a prodigy. Self-taught coder by 15. But life doesn't care about potential. A car accident, a lost scholarship, a mother with mounting hospital bills. Elias dropped everything. No degree. No mentors. Just labor. He buried that part of himself for years, let it rot. But it never died. So when he walked into that building and saw what they were building, glitchy, lazy, overpriced garbage, something snapped. Not out of hate. Out of hunger. Out of the belief that he could do better, that he had to. And so, under flickering lights and behind locked maintenance doors, Elias began building. Every line of code a whisper of the man he used to be. Every feature a strike against everything that left him behind. The first prototype barely worked. Characters froze. Worlds collapsed. The physics engine was chaos. But Elias didn't quit. He couldn't. Night after night, he returned. Fixing bugs. Rewriting code. Teaching himself art and animation from scratch. No sleep. No praise. Just obsession. He started hiding pieces of hardware behind air vents, stashing drives inside unused fuse boxes. He even built a voiceover booth out of cleaning supplies. To the company, he was still just background noise. But underground, in online forums, whispers began to spread. A new game, hyper-realistic, emotionally raw, untraceable origin. Players were stunned. Streamers called it haunting, revolutionary. But no one knew who made it. That was exactly how Elias wanted it. He uploaded it anonymously. One forum. No fanfare. No name. Just a link. Within days, it spread like wildfire. Reddit threads blew up. Streamers wept on camera. Storyline, about a man overlooked, discarded, and reborn, hit too close. The graphics were unlike anything people had seen. Gritty, human, intimate. It didn't just entertain, it haunted. People began demanding answers. Who made this? Where did it come from? And when a data leak exposed the game's backend, pointing to a corporate IP address in that very building, the janitor's name surfaced, and everything changed. The company panicked. Overnight, legal teams were summoned. Panda scrambled. Elias was called into a meeting, his first ever. The conference room felt colder than usual. Across the table sat the same executives who had never made eye contact before. One cleared his throat. "Elias, we need to know how much you know." He didn't flinch. "I built it." Silence. Then laughter. Nervous. Pedmol. Uncertain. "What you did could be seen as theft," someone said. Elias leaned forward, steady. "No, what I did was create. What you did was ignore." The room shifted. Power dynamics flipped. They thought they could intimidate him. But Elias had created something untouchable. And now, undeniable. Behind closed doors, chaos brewed. Executives debated endlessly. Some wanted to sue. Others begged to buy him out. A few feared he'd leak more. In the center of it all sat Amanda Ryker, the youngest board member. She studied Elias's files obsessively. "He's not a thief," she whispered. "He is a genius." Unlike the others, she didn't see a janitor, she saw the future. She made the first call to him directly. "You built something that changed people," she said. "Let's build something bigger." Elias listened in silence. He didn't trust her yet. But for the first time, someone in power actually saw him. And that was a start. News crews circled like sharks. Reporters swarmed the office lobby. Every headline was the same. "Janitor Genius Stuns Gaming World." Elias avoided the spotlight. He wore the same uniform, took the same elevator. But inside, everything had shifted. The developers who mocked him now watched him with awe and fear. Some tried to shake his hand. Others avoided him entirely. But Elias didn't care. He wasn't there for them. He was there for the game. The one he hadn't finished. The one that haunted his dreams. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the real build. And now, the world was watching. Elias finally saw the lab. The floor they always kept locked. Polished screens, holographic setups, cutting-edge gear. Amanda walked him through like a curator guiding royalty. "All of this," she said, "was never used right." Elias studied it quietly. Too much flash, not enough soul. He pulled up his build, plugged it into their system. It flickered alive. The engine pulsed, raw and unfiltered. Amanda gasped. This is art." Technicians gathered around. Engineers who once mocked now leaned in like students. Elias didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He just whispered, "Now, let's finish it right." At night, Elias returned to the boiler room, not out of necessity, but ritual. The clank of metal, the hiss of steam, the silence of forgotten places, it grounded him. On a rusted chair, he reviewed builds, rewrote code, recorded voice lines. Fame was knocking, but Elias wasn't interested in noise. He was building something that would outlive it. He opened a new file. Typed, "Final chapter begins." This time he wasn't building alone. Amanda sent backup. Artists, storytellers, coders who cared. And for the first time in his life, Elias felt something he never had: respect. Earned not by wealth, not by title, but by fire. The new team was nothing like the old. They were young, hungry, and weird, in all the best ways. Amanda called them the misfits. Coders from fan forums, indie devs who'd never seen a boardroom, voice artists who cried reading Elias's scripts. They didn't mock him. They listened. "How'd you code this combat AI?" one asked, awe in his voice. Elias shrugged. "Watched rats fight in the alley. Studied rhythm." It wasn't science. It was instinct. The team followed him not because of status, but because the game meant something. It had blood in its veins. It breathed. They worked day and night in a rented warehouse, wires snaking across concrete, pizza boxes stacked beside concept sketches. And for the first time, Elias smiled. But not everyone celebrated. Behind corporate walls, a different war raged. The company's legal team was on a mission to reclaim the game by force. Cease and desist letters were drafted. Surveillance was ordered. Internal emails buzzed with phrases like damage control and intellectual property theft. One executive whispered, "If we can't own him, we bury him." Amanda caught wind. She slammed a folder on the CEO's desk. "He built it. You ignored it. And now you want to erase it." The CEO didn't blink. "Business is war, Amanda. Sentiment doesn't scale." Outside, rain tapped the glass. Inside, she made a choice. Amanda pressed record on her phone. "Then, let's go to war." The attacks came fast. Lawyers showed up at the warehouse unannounced. Servers were frozen. Accounts locked. Press began turning. Headlines questioned Elias's legitimacy. "Janitor or thief," read one. The team scattered, some afraid, some furious. Elias sat in silence. "They think because I cleaned floors, I don't belong." Amanda stood beside him. They're wrong." He nodded, once. Then stood. "Then we fight back with truth." They uploaded the entire development log. Code timestamps. Video diaries. Forum threads from 2 years ago. Everything. Within hours, gamers rallied. Hashtags exploded. Streamers defended him. And just like that, the company's grip began to crack. The internet erupted. Players who had cried over the game now cried for its maker. Fan art flooded timelines. Devs who had once ignored Elias now posted apologies. A famous streamer wept live, "He gave us something real." Meanwhile, the company's stock plummeted. Leaks exposed internal sabotage attempts. And amidst it all, Elias kept building. Quietly. Calmly. His fingers danced across the keyboard like a composer. "Let them talk," he told Amanda. "Let them fight. We finish the story." That night, he coded the game's final scene, a man standing in a storm, holding nothing but a broken tool, and changing the world anyway. Launch day. No publisher. No PR machine. Just a single post, built in the dark, played in the light. EW. The game dropped. Within minutes, servers buckled. Reviews poured in. Unfiltered, unbought. "Game of the decade," one declared. "More human than AAA," wrote another. Players weren't just playing. They were healing. Because Elias hadn't built a product. He'd built a mirror. One that showed pain, hope, and perseverance. He stood in the warehouse, surrounded by the team, as their phones lit up with notifications. Amanda handed him a worn mop, half joking. He smiled, took it, and held it up like a trophy. From janitor to architect, the game exploded beyond the screen. Players hosted meetups in warehouses, modeled after Elias's space. Professors dissected its code. Therapists cited it in sessions. Elias was offered awards, covers, keynote stages, but he declined most. "The work matters more than the noise," he said. Yet one invitation made him pause. A keynote at the very company that once rejected him. Amanda watched him wrestle with it. "They don't deserve you," she said. Elias replied softly, "Maybe not, but the kids in the back row might." And so he stood on their stage, not to boast but to tell the truth. "Greatness," he said into the mic, "doesn't need permission." After the speech, a boy no older than 15 approached him backstage. Nervous, eyes wide. "I thought, people like us don't get to make things." Elias knelt to eye level. "You already made something. You imagined it. Now just keep building." The boy handed him a sketchbook filled with game maps, characters drawn in pencil, each page filled with hunger. Elias flipped through silently, his chest tight. "You're not alone," he said. That moment echoed louder than the applause. Because for every system that failed Elias, he'd built something greater, a door for others. And this boy? He was already walking through it. The company tried one last time. A merger proposal. Billions on the table. A chance to unite resources. Elias listened quietly as their lawyers pitched legacy, synergy, empire. He simply asked, would I still own it? The room went quiet. The lead exec shifted. Technically, no. Elias stood. Then technically you're wasting my time. And he walked out. Amanda caught up with him outside. You know they'll retaliate. Elias smiled faintly. Let them. The players already chose. The headlines the next day didn't read, deal struck. They read Janitor turns down $1 billion to stay free. It was never about money. It was always about the story. Late that night, Elias sat alone with his mop again, not to clean, but to remember. The tool that once defined his status now sat beside global awards and hard drives. He wrapped it in cloth and placed it in a glass case. It got me here, he whispered. Amanda watched quietly. You think you'll ever go back to cleaning? He chuckled. I never stopped. Because in his eyes, code was cleanup. Stories were sanitation. Games were how you scrubbed the world's lies and showed it something honest. His tools had changed. His mission hadn't. He wasn't trying to be famous. He was just trying to build something pure. Months passed. The studio thrived. New devs joined. Elias mentored more than he managed. He insisted on one rule. Every idea matters, no matter who it comes from. One afternoon, as a new intern nervously pitched a strange mechanic, Elias listened, nodding. It's weird, he said. I like it. They built it. And it worked. That moment, like so many others, rippled outward. Not because of tech. Not even talent. But because of trust. From mop bucket to boardroom, Elias had never forgotten what it felt like to be unheard. Now, he was a megaphone for the quiet ones. And his studio? It was built to echo them. The studio's second game was different. Bigger, louder, bolder, but still intimate. Elias insisted every line of code carry meaning. No filler, he'd say. Everything must bleed. Critics were skeptical. Lightning doesn't strike twice. But Elias didn't chase lightning. He built storms. The new game told the story of a janitor in a dystopia who codes a world to escape his own. Meta. Risky. No. Raw. 1. Amanda asked if it was autobiographical. All of them are. Elias said. The team worked around the clock, but no one felt exploited. They felt chosen. Because Elias didn't bark orders, he built beside them. Not with power. With purpose. The night before launch, Elias returned to the rooftop of the old building, the one where he used to mop under flickering lights. The city glowed beneath him. He carried nothing but his laptop. Alone, he uploaded the game. No press. No influencers. Just a whisper on a forum. It's time. The response was instant. Downloads crashed servers. Players cried again. But this time, they weren't shocked. They expected excellence, and Elias delivered. As he watched the sky lighten, Amanda joined him with coffee. You could have had everything, she said. Elias sipped. I do. No suits. No contracts. Just peace, pixels, and purpose. The backlash came anyway. A rival studio accused them of emotional manipulation. Critics wrote op-eds. Is Elias too perfect? But he didn't flinch. Let them speak, he told Amanda. They're proving the point. He released a behind-the-scenes doc, raw footage of bugs, fights, failures. One clip showed Elias breaking down, whispering, I don't know if this matters. The world saw not a genius, but a man. Vulnerable. Human. Wall. And the response? Deafening love. Because perfection was never the goal. Authenticity was. And in a world obsessed with polish, Elias reminded everyone, scars tell the best stories. A year passed. The studio flourished. But Elias began vanishing, quietly. Fewer meetings. More silence. Amanda found him one night, in the janitor closet of their new office. Couldn't sleep, he said. Needed to be reminded. She saw him tracing old blueprints, fingers brushing against mop handles hung like relics. I'm not tired, he added. I'm full. Amanda didn't press. She knew. Some people burn out. Others burn bright, then quietly become flame itself, part of everything. Elias wasn't leaving. He was becoming invisible again, by choice. The game is yours now, he said. Make sure it still tells the truth. When the third game released, Elias's name wasn't on it. Fans noticed. Where is he? They asked. But Amanda only smiled during interviews. He's here. Just not how you expect. The credits ended with a simple scream, to the ones who build in silence. Elias had become myth, legend, whisper. But inside the studio, every new dev was shown his old mop, now mounted on the wall, with one plaque. Clean your mess. Build your world. Because Elias Ward didn't just make games. He rewrote the rules. And then, like all great storytellers, he stepped out of frame, so others could step in. Years later, the studio had become something different. A sanctuary. Not just for developers, but for dreamers. High school dropouts, burned-out artists, retired engineers. Elias's spirit echoed in every hallway. Amanda, now CEO, still refused corner offices. Elias never sat above anyone, she'd say. In the lobby, a glass mural displayed game art. At the center, the janitor character from the original title, broom in hand, whirled behind him. Visitors stood in silence. Players still cried at the endings. But what mattered most was what came after the credits. A message, now it's your turn. Because Elias believed games weren't escape, they were blueprint. One day, a letter arrived, handwritten, postmarked from a small town. It was from Elias. Amanda opened it in her office. Inside was a single line, "It's growing." And a photograph, Elias standing barefoot in a garden, hands in the dirt, a small community of kids learning to code around him. No logos. No sponsors. Just soil, sun, and purpose. He'd built a workshop from reclaimed wood. No internet. Just notebooks and minds. Amanda smiled through tears. Elias had stepped away from the machine, not out of failure, but fulfillment. He hadn't quit. He had planted. And what he grew was revolution, quietly rooted in kindness. When news of Elias's retreat spread, some called it a loss. The industry needs him, headlines read. But Amanda countered publicly. He gave us the map. We just have to walk it. Others began creating similar sanctuaries. Gardens, garages, libraries where code and creativity blended. The media couldn't find Elias anymore. No phone, no social. But his shadow shaped everything. Studios stopped hiring by resume. They looked for grit, obsession, scars. Because Elias had proven that the janitor's story wasn't a fluke, it was a foundation. He didn't burn the industry. He quietly rebuilt it in his image, one unheard voice at a time. A decade passed. His name became a whisper in awards ceremonies, a legend in dev circles, a symbol in universities. But he never returned to the spotlight. One night, Amanda visited the original boiler room. It had been preserved, dust and all. She sat on the old stool, hands resting where his once had. A note lay under the keyboard. "If you're reading this, keep telling the truth." She laughed softly, tears slipping free. Even gone, Elias was present. Not in stone statues or golden plaques, but in echoes in code, in every player who saw themselves not as heroes, but as builders. Just like he did. That year, the studio released a remaster of the original game. Not for profit, but preservation. It opened with a new scene, a janitor sweeping a digital world made from memories, slowly building it piece by piece. No dialogue. Just motion, music, and truth. At the end, the screen faded to black, replaced by a single message, to Elias, who swept the world clean, so we could build something better. Players didn't cheer. They sat in silence, hearts full. And somewhere far from fame, Elias Ward, now older, grayer, closed his laptop beneath a tree, smiled at the stars, and simply whispered, "That'll do." The world had moved on. Faster, louder, newer. With our neural links. But in a quiet corner of an old convention center, a panel gathered, the legacy of Elias Ward. Young developers filled the seats. Some with tears, others with notebooks. Amanda took the mic. "He never wanted to be remembered," she began. "He just wanted to be heard." On screen behind her, images of Elias flickered, mop in hand, coding under lamps, laughing with his team. He taught us that creation isn't about being the loudest. It's about listening first. Silence settled. A student stood and asked, "Where is he now?" Amanda smiled gently. "Right where he's always been, at the root of every honest game." Somewhere in a rural town, a child entered a dusty library. Tucked behind fantasy novels, he found an unlabeled disc. Just a title screen, untitled. Curious, he loaded it. No tutorial. No dialogue. Just a pixelated janitor, wandering a quiet world, cleaning forgotten places. As the boy played, something stirred in him. The game was slow, meditative. But it spoke. About being unseen. About mattering anyway. He played for hours. When he finished, a single credit faded in, "Created by you." The boy blinked. Then smiled. Somewhere, Elias was still teaching, not with words, but with wonder. Because legends don't retire. They ripple. Back in the city, the studio preserved Elias's workspace untouched. Devs would leave notes on his desk, questions, dreams, sketches. No one expected answers. But sometimes, a post-it would appear, scribbled advice, a diagram, a word of encouragement. "Is it really him?" people whispered. Amanda never confirmed. She didn't need to. Because his presence wasn't bound to place. It was principle. Every new hire read one rule. Build like no one's watching. Share like everyone matters. That was his code base. Not just the one in files, but the one in hearts. And through it, Elias never left. He simply dispersed. Years later, a young woman was handed her first janitor badge at a tech company. Her father smiled proudly. "Remember what Elias said?" She nodded. She had read his story 100 times. Clean with purpose. Build in secret. Release in truth. That night, she mopped a dark hallway and paused beside a flickering screen showing old gameplay footage. The janitor character moved across the digital world. She reached out, touched the screen gently, and whispered, "I build my own." In that moment, something passed forward. Not a name, not a product, but permission. To begin. To believe. To become. And so he faded, not forgotten but absorbed, into every mechanic built with soul. Every player who wept quietly at a menu screen. Every dev who chose truth over trends. Elias Ward never asked for a statue. He asked for honesty. He didn't build a game. He built a mirror and dared us all to look. And what did we see? That greatness doesn't wear capes or corner offices. It wears boots. Carries mops, dead end. Listens when the world doesn't. And when it's done building, it doesn't wait for applause. It just walks away. Quietly. So others can rise. And that's why his name is never spoken in the building, even though he owns it.